morning. Welcome to Investigator News, and I'm your host, Ellie. And today we got a big show planned. Towards about halfway through the show, I'm planning on doing a little bit on the Clintons and the boys on the track, and it's very interesting. And we'll get to that a little bit later. We have, um, well, I guess I better pull this stuff up, huh? GM. Official bragged about her electric car, and then reporter forced her to admit where charging electricity comes from. The left has spent the last few months trying to shame Americans into buying electric vehicles. And on Tuesday, Michigan Senator Debbie Stabno uh, bragged to colleagues during a Senate Committee hearing about her driving her electric car from her home in Washington, D.C. and unconcerned about the prices at the pump. I drove it from Michigan to here last weekend and went by every single gas station, and it didn't matter. Well, there's a lot more to that. And the truth is that the high price of electric cars, not only the reason they're not catching on, but they require electricity to run them and lots of it. Um, and we have General Motors spokeswoman Zimmerman to thank for letting the cat out of the bag. During an unveiling of the new Volt last year, everybody thought we killed the electric vehicle, she playfully added. No, we didn't. It's alive and well. And she did smile for a while. And then they asked, well, where is the electric coming from? And she says, well, it's coming from the building. Um, and so basically, she had powered it through the building behind her. Um, and she said, well, pretty much it's all coming basically from coal. And I bet you there's a bit of, coal. And not only that, but maybe some even natural gas. So she pretty much started letting the cat out of the bag on this. And so last week, thinking it'd be fun, the Wall Street Journal reporter Rachel Wolf drove a Kia EV6 from New Orleans to Chicago, and she wrote a story about her trip, which she titled, I rented an electric car for a 4-day road trip. I spent more time charging it than I did sleeping. The bottom line is, she said, the trip was not fun. She spent 175 on charging fees, although she would have spent 275 on gas. That's maybe $100 savings. And if it weren't for the 18 hours she wasted just waiting for 14 charges that the car required. She learned the hard way that some fast charges take longer than others, and the range advertises to the consumer is higher than the actual range. Moreover, until the government installs the promised charging stations along the routes, EV drivers will sometimes be forced to go out of their way to hunt one down. On her trip back to New Orleans, she said, I was exhausted. I was grumpy. I didn't want to go to another electric station ever again. The following week, I filled up my jetty at the Shell station. She said, gas is up. She said, I inhaled deeply, and the fumes never smelled so sweet. Um, that was their story. And this is what I'm hearing all along. Susan, I got something to show you. Mary, I remembered it and I didn't eat them. So, well, I got a hair thing going today. I've been outside. So anyway, Mary, I brought some cookies. I guess these are those sugar cookies I was telling everybody about at the morning show. They're red, white, and blue. Of course, I got a gold plate. But they're sugar cookies and they're from Walmart. So I know everybody's ate them before, but those are, I love those cookies. So the electric cars just aren't worth it. Now, Mary and Karen's in this morning. Good morning, Karen. Karen is one of our, Karen and Mary is one of our moderators for the show. So if you're new, jump on in chat and one of them will make sure I get the message if you have a comment or a question. Most of the time I can catch the questions, and if you got a comment that looks really good, I'll throw you up on our board. Um, the, so I know we all heard about the Kavanaugh case. He had a lot on him. Oh my goodness! Not only that, get this: the guy at the now this is my sister posted. I don't know how true it is, but this other guy at the Texas shooting, he had all kinds of expensive stuff, and he had bulletproof vests and the rifle and the guns he had. Those aren't cheap, folks. He worked at McDonald's supposedly, and he had all this expensive stuff. I think the parents need to be looked at and asked, did they buy him all this? Did they buy him a military grade armored vest? It looks like he was looking for a fight with the police officers, not just to shoot up the school. Something's up there. We have a lot of questions on that. So back to Kavanaugh. The suspect basically um, arrived at the Brett Kavanaugh's neighborhood with a plan to assassinate him. Um, and they have been releasing reports, and I know everybody has read them. And the thing that got me was, let me get down to this. Um, oh boy. Okay, he had a Glock handgun with two magazines, a knife, a hammer, a crowbar, pepper spray, and other equipment. Um, yeah, he was out for war. I mean, that wasn't just to go get Kavanaugh. He had zip ties. He had, um, uh, yeah. See, Mary. I'm with you on that. I'd um, see if I can get that thing from my sister and send it to you. What's a high school guy doing with all that equipment? And then this guy, he sounded like he was going off to war. I mean, and the Glock is the big gun that Biden wants to take from everyone. That's just, uh, don't let that scare you, because that's a gun. It's a little handgun that everybody. It's very popular. 9 millimeter goes for a lot of guns. So don't even. I mean, there's bigger bullets than that. Remember that um, the funny in the this morning, Mary, with the 44 mag. That's way bigger, way bigger. Um, and it's all on the guns. Whatever gun they use, that's the one the Democrats want to do away with. And not only that, but the protesters are back out there. Why is Congress not stepping forward and condoning these people for what they do? The only reason why they're back out there is because nothing was done. Shut the streets down where these justices live. They can protest at the end of the street. Why do they got to be right in his house or on his lawn? I seen his lawn; it ain't that big. Why do they got to do that? And do you see these people? They got buckets from like um, Home Depot and a few other places. These are 5-gallon buckets, and they're dressed weird, and they're banging. These are a bunch of weirdos. I mean, you would think Mr. George could find better protesters to pay. And that's what a lot of this is. These are paid protesters. I'm gonna come right out and say it, um, because it's true. It's true. He has dozens of foundations that's nothing but like open societies that get protesters to go out and protest. And I can only imagine what this is all going to lead to. I don't want to spend too much time on that. But no, we got to start looking at these guys a little bit deeper, a little bit deeper. And we'll never see their trials. I will, because I hunt their trials down and watch them to see what they're all about. So I could tell you what they're all about. But the media won't. They're waiting for the next shooting so they could throw it all over. Let's take the guns away. That's all they do. If you watch and you're just totally fed up with it because they do a week long thing on it, When they don't get their way, they'll keep going and going and going and going. They'll get the media to do it. But when what about all the shootings in Chicago? Those little kids that's been shot. You don't hear about that. So, um, okay. Now we have Army couple accused of stealing $2 million of gear, including a sword and weapon parts. Um, this comes from military.com. And this happened at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. They're accused of using their positions to steal, resell, and keep more than $2 million worth of Army gear, including weapon parts, vehicles, and a sword. Prosecutors claimed that Christopher Hammond, who serves with the B Company Group, a support battalion, 3rd Special Forces Group, and his wife, Major Heather Hammond, carried out at least 4 scheme orders of ordering gear through the Army channels meant to supply units, but diverting it to sell for themselves. Now, these are military people that did this. And the pair was arrested Monday, and they're awaiting a date for their next court appearance. The prosecutors say the pair moved 1.8 million in profits through multiple USAA and Schwab brokerage accounts, some which were Miss Hammond's name was um, on the account. So, in addition to weapons and accessories, they ordered electric guitars, bayonets, swords, tools, welding gear, gym equipment, night vision goggles, all terrain vehicles. And according to the indictment, which does not specify vehicles, later used them or sold them. Um, so, this is, you get people like this, and they steal like bulletproof or armored vests. These are the people we need to be going after. Um, yeah, oh my God. And these are the people that will sell them to anybody on the street. And all it takes is a well dressed gang member, which they say they do, to go get stuff like this, and they'll buy it, and then they'll give it out to the people in the hood. And that's probably how this young man got that vest. It's too easy. And what does Congress do? Oh, let's wait for the next shooter so we could have our media that back us up, throw it all over the mainstream media for a week and try to get the guns. Oh, that's what they do. That's the out and out truth on the matter. Um, Now, my concern with Congress is, what about Social Security? It's at the point where it's at a breaking point to where, of course, they'll just print more money and put into Social Security so they can give it to the illegals. Um, the trust funds are in deep financial trouble at this point. Instead of addressing the matter before it becomes too big to solve, Congress has chosen to kick it down the road, ignoring the elephant in the room, and it fixates on less pressing problems and trivial matters. Um, on June 3rd, Social Security and Medicare boards of trustees issued their latest annual report on the financial status. And the two giant entitlement programs say it's not looking good to the future. It could shut down. Um, Social Security and Medicare both face long term financial shortfalls under the current scheduled benefits and financing. Cost of both programs will grow faster than the gross domestic product, the GDP, and through the mid 2030s, primarily due to the rapid aging of the U.S. population. That's before they add in illegals that they want to add to the system. Medicosts will continue to grow faster, and due to projected increases in volume and intensity to the services provided. The Old Age and Survivors Insurance OASI Trust Fund, which pays the retirement and survivor benefits, will be able to pay scheduled benefits on a timely basis until 2034. 1 year later than reported last year at the time. But the fund's reserves will be depleted, and continuing tax income will be sufficient to pay approximately 77% of the scheduled benefits. This is just derelict of duty on on Democrats just not paying attention. And how many times they said, "Oh, we're going to put illegals on Social Security." There's none left to put them on. And as you see, it's going to end in 2034. Well, that leaves everybody under me without. What about our kids and grandkids? What are they going to have? Well, like I said, they'll just print the money, but eventually we're going to have to pay for this. Um, yeah, Social Security is what we depend on, and we've been promised all of our lives. And Karen made a good point here. Um, I think everybody is. They are. They're paying attention, Karen. This is an eye opener. A lot of people knew about this, that it was going to end, but no one's talking about it. That's the problem. I'm a one person band. Well, no, I got you and Mary. We're a 3-person band, and I got William too. You know, we just got to tell people that we can't put these illegals. Find another funding. Come up with illegal um, funding. I don't know whatever illegal funding for care or something act, but don't put them on Social Security. And we need to figure out a way to replenish it, not take away from it. So this is something that is very important, and it needs to be addressed now, not wait till 2034 and say, "Oh, it's all gone now. Now what do we do?" And that's what the Democrats do. They wait till the last minute and then they figure it out. Look what they did with the baby food. You don't think they'll do it to, or baby formula. You don't think they'll do that to Social Security if they get a chance to? More than likely. So, very concerning for that. Um, okay, now this one I really have to be careful on. Well, we all know what we had to go get during the pandemic, and everybody insisted we all go get this thing, this jab thing. Well, guess what? 82 million doses have been wasted since the start of the pandemic, including 11% distribution by the federal government, according to the CDC. Um, and basically, CVC, Walgreens, Walmart, and all of them have thrown away about 25% of these things as a result of unused supply. And they have an expiration date that isn't very long, or if it's thawed out. So basically, what they have done is thrown out 82 million worth of these jabs. That's a lot, folks. That's a lot. And why did this administration let that happen? Um, Oklahoma and Alaska are the highest overall to throw away. Um, and they said roughly, they say it's closer to 90 millions that they have thrown away, but they had to throw away 11.8 million. 13% of the doses came from the state governments. And can you imagine what it is worldwide? Here Biden was crying about, "Oh, I don't have any, and it's depleted, and Trump didn't leave me none." And then he lets this happen, and guess what? We paid for it. We paid for all that. Um, yeah, they threw them away, Mary. They threw them away. I mean, that enough should piss off every American in this country after what we all went through. And then they just, okay, we'll just throw them away because they're expired and we can't do nothing with them. That's just fraud, waste, and abuse. There you go. That's what it's called. Fraud, waste, and abuse. Well, Karen, um, if go back in and get some rest, if I'll give you a call after the show. I might have some good news for you. So, but yeah, this is fraud, waste, and abuse on our federal government. Um, uh, and then after that, we have the World Bank that says it will send 1.5 billion in aid to Ukraine. So, when we can't do it, they do it. And the thing about it is, this is additional to um, the aid that we sent. And guess what? It's paid basically. Um, it's to pay salaries to the government and social workers, is what they're going to do with this. It doesn't even help them. Now we're starting to pay people in Ukraine for social workers. What does social workers got to do with the war? Ukraine is laying down their weapons, and now we're finding out that um, basically part of our money and our taxes could be going to pay them to go to social workers. The aid announced Tuesday is reportedly being funded by Italy, Lithuania, United Kingdom, um, Netherlands, and not only that, but even Denmark. And the bank is roughly 4 billion package to Ukraine, which nearly 2 million has already been dispensed. The funding taps out the bank's total pledge of support. Um, and the World Bank Group is providing and continuing to provide and support and its people uh, with the war ongoing. Um, Last month, the U.S. approved 40 billion aid package for Ukraine, and the Biden administration would send another 700 millions in weapons, and that includes minimum range advanced rockets. Um, I think I think we should be done. I think we should be done sending Ukraine money. They have gotten billions and billions of dollars since 2013 under the Obama administration to buy weapons with. What did they do with the money and what did they do with the weapons? I'm getting a little sick of it myself. It's one thing to help them out, but when you keep sending billions and billions and billions and billions, and you keep putting your hand out to us, the taxpayers, I think it's a time that they laid off a little bit. Let them fight their little war over there. Um, you know, uh, this is too much, too much. And why do we have to win it for them? Ukraine picked this fight. Granted, Putin overstepped his boundaries, but this is their fight. It's not our fight. And if NATO wants to be a part of it, let NATO be a part of it. And I'm pretty sure if we had a Republican in office, that they would say the same thing. Why should we fight their war? They did fine fighting it since 2008. Why do we got to put our little feet in there and in the water and get our feet wet too, and have us pay for it? It's not like they're printing money for these guys. It's the taxpayers' money. Um, they can print money to go get Nancy Pelosi a new face or something. She was still I've been getting pictures for this Boys on the Track, and I seen some young pictures of her, and it was like she looks better old. And then I seen it, and I remembered her from California when many moons ago, and it was like, yeah, she was just. What makes her ugly is her heart. She just, when you're that horrible, it just makes you ugly. So, anyway, I'm gonna move on. I got to keep an eye on my time here. Um, now the Defense Department is meeting with China's defense chiefs. and they're going to come face to face very soon within the next few weeks. And this has got to do with what um, our part of Taiwan is going to be. Now, this is going to be very important because between the two chiefs, they're going to decide what role that the United States is going to play with Taiwan. Now, we know China says, no, 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 you're not going to do nothing. And Biden is flip flopped. So, as I should say his administration has flip flopped on this because he says one thing and then they all come out and sugarcoat and change it to something else. Um, so they're going to hold this meeting in person in, I think it's Singapore, is where they're going to hold this summit between the two. And Defense Minister Wei Feng and his and who we're sending is Lloyd Austin, expected to hold their first in person meeting on the sidelines uh, behind closed doors. It's a private meeting. So we won't get to hear nothing on it. And then basically starts on June 10th. China's state run Global Times also suggests that Wei and Austin may hold face to face talks during Shangri La dialogue. Um, while nothing that neither side had officially confirmed that such a meeting will happen, they say it will start on June 8th, but the public part of it will be a few days later. If it takes place, it shall showcase the basic agreement on managing disputes and willingness to enhance communications. So this will be very interesting to watch. Now, this is something they were trying to keep quiet until a London based think tank and their media let the cat out of the bag on this. And so the forums that they're going to be using, it's like I said, they're going to discuss all kinds, even the pandemic, they're going to discuss. So it's overall a little bit of everything. And I thought it would just be on the war, but from the sounds of it, it's not only on what's going on in Ukraine, in China, the South China Seas, what's going on with some of these countries that China is taken, and also the big war with Taiwan. Um, oh, now here's the other one here. Well, House Democrats are going to hold hearings at the southern border. And, I looked at that and I said, well, it's about time. Uh, but guess what? It's not about on the border. They're going to hold a conference. They're going to conduct a series of field events across the community and talk about implications of outdated infrastructure. They're not going to talk about the crisis on the border. So they're all going to go down there. And you say, well, who is this? Okay, well, we got Representative Democrat Jim Hines will lead this. And there'll also be Vincent Gonzalez, a Democrat from Texas. And so this is what they're going to do. In fact, they'll have an opportunity to gain firsthand insight as to the implication of outdated infrastructure, working class communities, and economic mobility. Nothing about the wall, nothing about the illegals pouring over our border or waiting on the other side. This is all about infrastructure. So it has nothing to do with the border. But they're all going to go down there and they're going to get together and talk about infrastructure. Um, so that why bother going down there? Why not just have it in Sacramento, California? It'd be a cool place for them to go. But that's not what their plan is. I think they want to look at the border and just say, "Oh, we got this summit over here, we got this meeting over there," and take a peek at what's going on at the border for themselves. And I think all the Democrat congressmen need to go, and senators, and take a real long look at the border at what they've done. But I don't think they can handle it. Oh boy. Oh, wait till you guys hear this one. I can't believe this one. Um, we are going to be taxed. This is a climate change in the backdoor tax that they haven't told you about, but it's listed as cow farts and burps are going to be taxed for climate change. It's going to be a meat tax. So apparently, the effort to tax meat, the burps and farts of the cattle and sheep are set to be taxed by the leftist government. Um, Not only in New Zealand, but in parts of the United States. Um, the Democrats seem to think that they just know that this is what's causing a lot of our climate warming is cow farts and goat farts and burps. Um, oh my gosh. As a result, half the country emissions come from farming, they say, mostly methane produced by belching and farts. And this is with cows and sheep and goats. So if you got one of the above, you could be taxed on your cattle, they say alone. If it's down in like a farming listed as farming, but if it's listed as cattle, or small livestock, you're going to get hit. You're going to get taxed. So it'll be, um, they say that the 74th globally in terms of the carbon emissions, accounting for 0.009% of the world's emissions. Sending one rocket up there kills off more than a cow farting. Uh, uh, I can't believe they're so obsessed with this. And that's what it is, definitely. You would take there you go. Um, so, uh, this is something that Congress they just have no solutions anymore. Um, Everything they have done, there is no solution for. And this is the first time in my life I've ever seen a government that didn't have a solution or a plan. And when you ask them, they just laugh. They should have a solution or a plan of what's the next step, but they don't. They're just letting the country go downhill and thinking it's funny. So that's where I think one of the chatters said earlier, this is purpose. This is on purpose. Um, Now, as far as um, I got to get the right one. Russia goes. They are basically the Ukrainians are probably today going to lose the city of Sevilla and Donetsk region. They say basically it's now under control of Moscow. Russian troops have been mounting an offensive in eastern Ukraine for weeks now in the Donbass region. They've been witnessing heavy shelling, bombing in this city, and which is part of Luhansk, or the blast has been reeling under Russian strikes. And after days of fierce fighting, real intense fierce fighting, um, they with the Ukraine forces, the Russian troops have not been able to enter there. But the governor has added that the Russian troops are destroying all the houses with their tanks and artillery, but they have been going and looking for anyone that is hiding that's a Ukrainian military. So they plan on moving out soon. And they said, according to what they're seeing with Ukraine, the forces may have to withdraw very soon and back out before any more could die. Um, Now, the hunger in Africa, folks, this is getting really bad. There is, get this, every 48 seconds a child dies right now in Africa. Um, they say it's the worst drought ever that's faced their country. They say over 40 years. Um, a starvation of close to 200,000 people could die. Some 700 million Somalis face acute levels of starvation at this point, almost half the country's population. is now looking at massive starvation. And that's why they're fleeing up to into Europe and the UK, and also fleeing over here. Um, it's a drought emergency in Somalia, is what they said, and it's worsening every day, and it's a looming disaster as people are dying. And Somalia's malnutrition treatment centers have witnessed over 400 deaths just in the last few months alone. Um, so, I mean, think on that. Every 48 seconds, there's somebody dying in Africa because of no food. And when Putin sat down with a lot of the media, he was saying, if if Biden were to pull out and go away, um, they would see that it's not Putin that's caused the gas crunch. They won't see that it was just Putin doing this grain. One over there, remember the big port? They were all the boats were all lined up. Well, there's 7 ports that they could unload in, and because of the cost of the fuel, they only have one port open, and there's no trucks to take it. And why is that? Because it's too expensive. And now there is an epidemic of a shortage of truck drivers. The truck drivers are quitting. So many small companies that do the trucking industry have now quit, and this is dangerous. Um, and it's only because of the soaring gas prices. And they say there are already 80,000 trucks short in the country right now. That's everything from the ones that take it off the truck to even your UPS. More than 750% of its freight is transported by truck drivers. Um, there is nothing more that um, the truck drivers can do if there's a supply chain and only one port open. Now, when I called and asked um, some of the uh, uh, senators that are supporting, like was it Buttigieg that's in charge of the ports? Well, when I've called people like him, not him, that are senators and congressmen, they basically say that it's the truck drivers being greedy, that this is capitalist. They're greedy and they've made all this profit. Nobody's making any profit. What this has done is putting out the middle class, because it's just nothing to bring in the supplies. And they said 70% on diesel prices is up. Um, the fleet driver for a big company like Walmart or JB Hunt, um, there's quite a few of them. You probably see them on the road. There's quite a few that deliver to these stores. And the cost is so um, extreme now that they're paying almost 2,000 to close to almost up to, they say, 5 to 6,000 a week just to uh, um, get transportation to just a few stores. That's not a bunch. They said it's not like they're going store to store to store and everybody's going to be okay. They could only do a few at a time, and they're getting fed up and they're quitting. And when they took it to um, Washington, basically, they were ignored. They were snubbed. No one wanted to talk to them. Nobody wanted to address the situation. And they just had to leave. They had to turn around and get back on the road. They've got families to feed. Um, they said there's just no magic wand to fix this. And the message basically is when the winter months come up and it's harder and they use more fuel, the trucks won't be rolling. Nobody has the magic wand. Nobody knows what to do. There is no solutions for this, nor are they offering any of them. And they say there's only one hand in it, and this is the Democrats. And quite a few of the head big companies are now coming forward and they're saying, what are we supposed to do? You're telling us it's our fault. when it's actually your fault because you've ruined our country. And they say this is crazy. This is crazy. We need more supply, but we can't solve the problem if there's no gas. And according to quite a few of the trucking industries that have called them, said, what do you want? What are we supposed to do? The solution coming from the White House, get an electric vehicle. And when I heard that, I don't. All you can do is get upset at this. Um, eh, eh, you know, because they have no solutions. Get a electric car, and you know what they said? Well, where do we buy these? Where do we buy after paying 200, 300,000 for their trucks? Where are these electric trucks? Where are the electric trucks? Oh, they don't know about that. They don't know about that. So basically, canceling the Keystone Pipeline is one thing, but the all of the new pipelines that have been ready to go that would have made us self-sufficient, or they're just not approving them. And like I said, they just don't have any plans, any solutions for this, as they should. The government for decades have always had a solution, and this is the first in history we're looking at an administration that has collected billions on for their ideas, where they all sit around a little table and they're all trying to figure out what to do. Um, and they have been looking into this problem for 2 years, and then they come out of this room just going, well, I don't know, and then laughing about it. And you're talking taking billions of us, and now we have inflation that's gone up. For them to sit around in a little room and trying to come up with the root cause of why the truck drivers aren't driving, and why there's no gas. Oh, it's Putin, it's Trump, it's us. We're the problem because we won't buy their electric cars. Well, dadgummit, I'd rather have a horse. That's just kind of where I'm at. I'm down to wanting a horse at this point. Um, hey, at least I won't speed. Just don't say stuff to the cops you shouldn't. Um, so with that, folks, I do want to get on to the Clintons. Um, there's no statute for limitations on this for murder. And this is all what I'm going to be bringing forth to you guys for a while. It's going to be a while. This is huge. Um, this is about corruption in the highest levels of government. If you could think of the people that are at the tops, um, uh, this is who's been behind all of this. And they were there to cover up corruption for those in power for decades. And I have to start with Kevin Ives, because his death is what started unraveling the corruption, exposing these people in power. Things they hid from you, they lied about. Some revelations might surprise you, or the realization of why they make policies today, or for you to connect the dots like I did. And what you see today, uh, and as I go forward with this, um, is their way to hide corruption on every level. I was given information this week that unlocked criminal behavior that they can't let you know about, hidden for decades. How all of them band together, both sides, Republicans and Democrats, to cover up their corruption. Again, there's no statute of limitations, folks, on murder. And why they want you to forget it is why it's been buried for so long. My agenda is to expose every one of them. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of them. I'm not afraid of Hillary Clinton. And I have to say, this show is for you, Linda Ives. I'll make you proud. I'm going to let these people know what I know, you knew, and a few of us that got sent some stuff over the week. And I'm going to expose every single one of them like they should have been a long time ago. Now, this started back in August 23rd, 1987. And this is a strange place for two teenage boys to be. They were lying on the train tracks in the middle of the woods in near Bryant, Arkansas. And by the time the three men in the lead engine of the northbound Union Pacific train saw the boys, it was already too late. Risking derailment, they said they went ahead and they threw the mile-long train into an emergency, and they laid on its horn and assumed the boys would just get up. Despite of all the vibration and the squealing that was heard for miles and the screeching of metal against metal, the deafening blast of the horn, the boys didn't move. And the train's powerful headlight allowed the engineer and conductor and the brakeman to see that there were boys laying side by side across the tracks in identical positions. Their body was partially covered with a tarp. Moments later, the truck overtook the motionless boys. The victims were Don Henry, age 16, and Kevin Ives, 17, both of Saline County, Arkansas. They would have started their senior year at Bryant High School that following week. Kevin had it planned that he was going to stay the night at Don Henry's house, and the two ventured outside a little later after midnight, never to return. Little did anyone know at the time, these two friends had unwittingly stumbled upon an underworld of drug smuggling and of government corruption that the government never expected any of us to see. The cover up is so unbelievable proportions. And just like the Democrats, they caused so much chaos around it that you wouldn't really pay attention to a sleepy little town in Arkansas where two boys were run over by a train. The thing about this is there was so much top government corruption of the FBI, the CIA, top uh, people that were part of Republicans, the Democrats, presidents of past, um, that they had to cover for one another. And they couldn't let anybody really find out what was going on. So, um, Linda Ives, she basically said she believes Kevin and Don near the tracks that night either saw money, drugs, or some big government uh, uh, experiment or something going on. Um, and she said she believed that law enforcement officers killed them, and then the cover up began immediately and expanded to the medical examiner, Family Malik, at the time. Family Malik in Arkansas, he's a state medical examiner, and he was the one responsible for ruling cause of the death of the boys. But his plan was told to him by higher officials in our government to rule the boys' death a double suicide. However, after conferring with Jim Steed of the Saline County Sheriff, they decided no one would accept such a ruling and to change the cause of death. But it would take not just Jim Steed, a small town sheriff, and a state medical examiner, it would take the whole lot of the state and government um, positions to be able to cover all of this up. She said we were absolutely puzzled and outraged over the ruling, the accidental uh, manner of death. They didn't think that the facts supported the ruling. And what they started out to do was just obtain a second opinion. So they brought someone in um, from out of the state, and they were met with resistance from all law enforcement and the crime lab, and they ended up being so bombarded by government officials telling them not to do this, they had to retain an attorney and a private investigator and obtain court orders to get samples of everything in order to get a second opinion. The government was not going to give them, and this was the FBI at this point stepping in, as well as the CIA. Um, they wanted family Malik to be the only one to do the boys' autopsies, and they, at this point, refused to obey court orders, even to the end, she said. Without any support and evidence, Malik ruled the boys had each smoked more than 20 marijuana cigarettes and, in a psychedelic stupor, had fallen asleep on the tracks because not only did they want to see what it was like to be run over by a train, but they just simply fell asleep. It was later learned that the state crime lab had never even tested for the concentration of marijuana. In fact, had used a test on the boy's blood, which designed to be used on urine, not blood. Outside experts were shocked at the absurd ruling. The family's nightmare and battle against the state and medical examiner were made more difficult. And by who? None other than Governor Bill Clinton. And he was in support of Malik. But however, after 13 long months, the parents were finally able to prove what they believed all along, that the boys indeed had been murdered and there was some huge cover up by somebody. The news media, of course, paid by the Clintons, that we all knew about, the media did whatever they were told. And the 17-year-old Kevin Ives and 16-year-old Don Henry were struck by a train. This is according to the media. They said the Alexander medical examiner said the boys were asleep and drugged with marijuana. And the parents have disputed that claim, and persuaded by authorities to reopen the case. And they were backed 100% by state and federal authorities. So basically, they brought in a new guy, and the bodies were exhumed, and new autopsies were performed, and a grand jury was convened. Dr. Joseph Burton, a nationally recognized forensic pathologist from outside the state, performed the autopsies and revealed that Don Henry had been stabbed in the back. Kevin's face had been smashed and blown by a rifle butt. Before their bodies were placed on the railroad tracks, this information alone would have strongly suggested the boys were injured and rendered unconscious, or even killed prior to their bodies being run over by the train. Burton's autopsy also revealed that Malik had mutilated Kevin's skull by sawing it in so many different directions, in so many places, and so deep that it was impossible to tell where the original skull fractures actually were. Malik had also completely dismantled Kevin's jawbones to make it harder for them to even get his. They said it made it impossible for anything to be done on the head, according to Malik. And so lots of tests he didn't do. He had performed thousands of autopsies, and this guy from outside, Dr. Burton, and never seen anything like it. He said to the Ives family and the Henry family, Malik was trying to hide something. This is something very deep, so that either Malik has something to hide, and was actually asking the family, are you acquainted with him personally? And so this was so horrific for the family to go through. So at this point, they're now realizing there is something with this government, not just Arkansas, not just Bill Clinton. This goes way big. And so when they asked Malik about it, he said, no, they were not stabbed. And they weren't stabbed beforehand, he said. So he said they weren't alive. They were killed on the track, and that they need to just deal with what family Malik had to say, and not by this other guy from outside the state that maybe just wanted some money. Uh, a former employee at the crime lab said he discovered what appeared to be the evidence of a stab wound in the original autopsy, but was told, quote, not to talk about it. And Malik refused to comment on this. The death of the boys were probably not accidental deaths, but what they met with their death as a result of the injuries inflicted on them. Um, and who would do this? Who would do this? Two other forensic pathologists and seven forensic investigators with more than 100 years accumulated experience basically reviewed the case, and they made sure it was changed to murder. During the midst of the turmoil with trying to get a ruling that get it changed, um, it became apparent this was not an isolated instance. The error in the ruling on the matter, there were many other cases statewide that had become aware of in 1992 in Los Angeles Times, telling that more than it could have been 20, it could have been 40 or more additional cases where Dr. Malik had falsified evidence and ruled incorrectly. Like one case involved the murder of Raymond Albright, who had been shot 5 times in the chest with a Colt 45. Incredibly, Malik ruled that one a suicide too. Also, James Dewey Millam, whose body was found without a head. This case that had to be covered up, Malik ruled the cause of death was due to an ulcer. Also, Millam's head had clearly been severed with a knife. So, family Malik claimed the family pooch had bitten off the head, eaten the entire thing, and then regurgitated and puked it all over the floor. He says he tested the dog's vomit and found traces of the brain and the skull. Unfortunately, um, Dr. Malik, uh, soon after, was very embarrassed when Millam's head was found. And it turns out he had made up the entire story. And of course, Bill Clinton covered everything up for him and gave him a $9,000 raise. Um, Media coverage of family Malik has been very uh, dishonest. It resulted back then for an outcry of a lot of people in Arkansas when this happened. They stood up and they said, no, he needs to be removed. And that all of these cases were so fabricated, and he creates his own evidence to the magnitude that he created a national scandal at this point. And he will, just to maybe get Bill Clinton to give him another raise. That's kind of when we were all starting to look at, why would Bill Clinton cover this guy? Why would Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton be so fond of this man? Well, we're going to find out is in the next quite a few shows. There was a reason why they helped him, but it doesn't explain for Jocelyn Elders. Now, I hope you guys remember her. So both Clinton and the Arkansas State Medical Examiner Commission chairman, Jocelyn Elders, who had the power to remove Malik from office, not only insisted that he remained, but praised him and said what a wonderful coroner this man was, that he does basically professional, um, very professional, and goes above and beyond. And then they gave him a raise. Jocelyn Elder's statement, based on the facts, I feel that Arkansas owes, this is what she said. This is exactly her statement. I really feel that Arkansas owes Dr. Malik a great debt and a very big apology. And then she walked away from the cameras. The governor was asked if Malik should resign and Bill Clinton. I don't think so. That's a decision that should be based more on what I know. He didn't do anything wrong, and he walked away. Now, Linda Ives said it didn't matter what Malik did. He even perjured himself in court and fabricated evidence and murdered not just her boy, but other murder trials, and to call other coroners murderers. And each time the Clinton, Bill and Hillary Clinton defended him by accusing that he was stressed out, overworked, and of course underpaid. And so they promised they would get him a substantial raise. And maybe that would help him in the lab and maybe help him to be a better coroner. His testimony compromised the evidence in a lot of felony cases here in Arkansas. And it was very transparent that family Malik had some kind of hold over the Clintons, or um, or he knew something. And that was the big thing that we were all looking into, is where does family Malik fit into the corruption of the Clintons? Now, we knew they were corrupt. We known at this point by 1987 that they had done so much wrong in the state. We knew of the corruption, but we never dreamed that any of this would happen. And so, we all kind of band together with Linda Ives, and we decided we were going to get to the bottom of this with this family Malik. The end result that was given from Bill Clinton when he came out and basically said that he was going to give him a $14,000 raise. And it was an absolute insult to all of us. And not only that, he took him to Washington with him. Malik's basically, when people would go up, he would say, "Oh, read my lips. I'm not going to comment," end quote. And he would say it all the time. And thank God he passed away a few years ago in Florida. He was paid so well that he ended up with a beautiful house in Florida and got to retire. I was pretty much outraged when I didn't learn about none of this till right about 92, 93. That protecting a political crony of the Clintons was more important than the fact that two boys had been murdered, despite the policy um, of any type of investigation into it, they would have shut down. It was getting to be, this was very suspicious. And we knew it was a homicide, and we just had to prove it. Now, the Saline County deputy that took control of the scene where Kevin and Don were murdered immediately ordered it worked as an accident. So this didn't help. And the procedures were never taken to protect the scene properly to collect evidence. They basically were told the investigators and everybody that was out on the scene that night, and even days after, that the accident investigators, it was a kind of orchestrated into it's just an accident, so just pick up what you can, throw it in garbage bags, and we'll deal with it. What we're gonna, whether we throw it out or if we save it back at the office. It was not enough at the time an emphasis to put into uh, that this was against all standard police procedures. Police don't act like this. And at the back of the train was one of the things they used as reference point to record the location of the boy's body and the possession. But the police told the train, just go on. We don't need you. We don't need you here. Just go ahead. And so that they did leave. They did give statements, and I got a few of them. And so once the train left, the reference point was lost forever. And the information gathered became totally useless because of local investigation was headed by Jim Steed. Later find out that he was there on the tracks when the boys were killed. He later went on television bragging what a thorough investigation he had conducted, and he felt very sorry for the parents. But he had confidence in Family Malik's ruling was correct, and he backed him up. Their investigation was so thorough, that they left Kevin Ives' foot on the tracks in plain sight for 2 days. I heard one of the family members found it. A number of pieces of evidence collected at the scene eventually turned up missing. Police refused to acknowledge the existence of even the gun, that it was collected and even captured on video. Do you know, to this day, they still deny there was even a gun out there? They said, oh, that was a flashlight everybody's seen. But on the pictures, you can tell that it's definitely a shotgun. Now, all three members of the train crew observed a tarp that was covering the boys, and it became a big thing with this investigation. And because if the boys were totally covered with a tarp, why would they get? Why would they smoke a whole bunch, 20 marijuana cigarettes, is what they said, and then lay down and then cover themselves up with a tarp? The bodies on the track prior to impact, the conductor uh, even showed investigators where the tarp had landed after the impact. He said he was horrified, but they were covered up with a tarp. Nevertheless, the police denied the tarp's existence. Um, and a train employee made a statement. He said, yeah, I believe the paramedics picked up the tarp from the boys, and I believe that they had it on over the top of them as we were coming down the tracks. And then they had the body bags, and then they were walking down there. And he says, everything was kind of separate, but it was the paramedics when they picked up the boys and with the body bags, and they had grabbed the tarp. And one of them said, I can't remember. Everything was kind of chaos, and he really didn't pay that much attention. He said he knew it was some kind of top. It wasn't a body bag because more or less this could be folded. And he said, as close as he could remember, they laid it down, but he didn't remember seeing it after that. And Linda and her family started hearing rumors, a tarp covering Kevin and Don on the tracks. So they questioned Saline County law enforcement about it. And when they were sitting in her living room, and this was Rick Ellendorf and Chuck Talent, and they were absolutely certain it was an optical illusion that the train crew had seen. And they had conducted tests on the clothing, and they revealed that they would have found fibers from the tarp. So when it impacted either the clothing or the bodies itself, they would have found a match, they said. But see, that was a lie because they never conducted those tests. My interpretation of that is they had some reason to lie. And that's what I told Linda quite a few times. Perhaps they were involved themselves, is what I said. And what would turn out on many occasions, Linda caught police, FBI, and officials in lies over the years. To be the most ironic twist in the case, the deputy prosecutor, Richard Garrett, and his friend, defense attorney Dan Harmon, approached Linda Ives and convinced her they would do everything in their power to catch those responsible for murdering her son. Harmon was subsequently appointed special prosecutor to head the grand jury probe. However, as his investigation advanced, potential witnesses began turning up dead. And these are all witnesses that were there on the track. In May 1988, Keith Coney, who was believed to be with Kevin and Don that night, told family and friends that law enforcement officials were responsible for the murders. 2 days later, he was killed when his motorcycle crashed while he was being chased. According to some officers, his throat had been previously slashed, and almost to the point where his head was almost cut off. And then he jumped on his motorcycle and he rode away. However, this crucial information was left out of the final report, and there was no autopsy, no investigation, and I guess who did the autopsy and the ruling? And he didn't think it was an accident because he was fearing for his life and he could have hit something in a paranoia and then crashed, according to Family Malik. A couple of months before, um, he said he felt he was being watched and he was afraid. And Mrs. Alexander said her son said that there were two teenagers run over by a train. And she said he indicated to her that he had been there when the boys had died, that he has spotted two attackers that looked like police officers, but he knew there was two. And I did try to tell him to go to the police, she said, but he was so afraid. Now, in November in 1988, another one on the track with Keith McCaskill, who allegedly at the tracks that night turned over information he had about the boys' murders to Richard Garrett. Believing he had talked to the wrong people, McCaskill made his own funeral arrangements, told family and friends goodbye, and within days was murdered himself. He was stabbed 113 times. His murder remains um, unsolved. And on the night of the elections in 1988, he took two pennies out of his pockets and threw them on the bar at the wagon wheel. And he said, if Jim Steed loses this election, my life isn't worth 2 cents. And he was murdered that night. And members of the Arkansas State Police found themselves in awkward position, trying to convince the public that these deaths now were um, was no part of this. It was merely a coincidence. So basically, you could see that there is a reason for this paranoia with the police department. You now have quite a few that have pointed the fingers at police department in Saline County, not only for the detectives actually working on the case were having fingers pointed at them, but also even the DA um, for that city, and they had reason to fear. Um, so basically, when elected officials found out they had made it into the following years, that's when they really doubled down. And what they had done was things began missing in the files. Things began, like the tarp. There was no tarp. The gun disappeared. Oh, there wasn't no gun. It was a flashlight, they say. Um, and not only that, but the death toll began to climb. There was a 1989 Greg Collins who fared to appear after a subpoena. They basically found that he was killed with a shotgun blast to the face. It seems that the Clintons have a way with whoever they get to kill individuals, it's always with a shotgun blast back at this time. Now, think about what you just heard on the news lately, folks. One of the Clintons' lawyers back in this time was just found in Arkansas, not only with a shotgun blast, but he hung himself. And, well, it wasn't Family Malik that did that autopsy, but more than likely it was a paid Clinton doctor that did it. Then in March of '89, Booney Bearden, a friend of both um, Coney and Collins, he disappeared. Basically, the body, they heard that he was murdered by a call in anonymous to the police department, but they've never found his body. 1989, Jeff Rhodes was the next one. He was murdered after telling his family he knew too much about Kevin and Dawn and McCaskill murders and Rhodes, and then he ended up shot in the head. 1989, Richard Winters, another grand jury witness, was gunned down during the robbery, which is apparently staged to cover his murder case. In 1990, Jordan Kettleson, who is believed to be connected to McCaskill murder, was killed by a shotgun blast to the head. There was no police investigation on that one because they said he committed suicide. His body was cremated before an autopsy could be performed. Um, in 1990, oh, get this, before the autopsy could be performed, but it was Family Malik that sent it off for him to be cremated, and it was the family didn't even know. 1995, Mike Samples, another grand jury witness, was shot to death. Sources claim he had been involved in retrieving drugs that were dropped from airplanes. The authorities have denied any connection between any of these cases. Um, so you could see why do you think we call it Arkansas? And there's still more. In '88, quite a few others had come up dead that was part of this case. And as we look at it today, every single person that witnessed and hid that night are dead. There was approximately 8 to 10 boys out there, I believe, and every single one of them are dead, as well as witnesses or people that these others had told about this that it happened. All of them are dead. It's almost to the point where there's only a handful left. And you say, okay, who are they? Well, the three gentlemen that were part of killing the boys, our own Asa Hutchinson, um, and a few lawyers, and a few DAs. I believe the judge that kept all of this out of court, I believe he's still alive. The thing is, and you heard our own Asa Hutchinson. Well, he was a attorney general for the Clintons and a lawyer for the Clintons for many, many years. And he's somebody I think with all of us that are getting some threats, I bet he's got some. He knew about this. Our own governor that's in charge of our state right now knew about the boys on the tracks. And I have called and I have called and I've called, and he won't even respond. Or I get he knows nothing about it. We know he does. Not only that, the judge, John Cole, we have tried to get a hold of him too. He refused to respond or even talk to any of us or the families. We were all basically in 80, well, me in 92 when I started on it, but from 1988 to 92, and then I moved back out here in 96, and then I started on it again, or started it with them because I have a friend that may have been connected to this, and he was found run over by a train on the railroad tracks as well. Um, they, we've all are so frustrated with this case, and the grand jury was not allowed to even look into it. When the grand jury was starting, they had a leaker, and like they do, look at what Hillary just had with her own. There's always that one that they managed to sneak in to find out what's going on. Well, when they did, the judge went forward, he canceled the trial, he sent the grand jury home, and it's never went before another court. Why? Because there's a lot to this. And there was a lot to it back then. It was already thousands of documents. Before the boys even got put on the railroad tracks, there was thousands of documents that have pointed to our government being involved in a bunch of stuff in the state. Not only that, but if you want, we can add Bill and Hillary Clinton, but Papa Bush, he was a big part of this too. He knew about it. Yeah, the Bush family, they all knew about this. They all knew. They all knew. And what's that tell you? That we had a president for a while that knew about this. And every time we had asked for help, sought help, called And even some of the state members uh, of Senate and Congress here had went before him and said, we need to look into this. We'll get to it. We'll get to it, Bush said. But we have never had any type of justice for these boys. Now, this is, I just wanted to give you a preview and give you a little bit of insight on this. And as I roll forward with this, it's going to get deep. It's going to get very deep. And I'm going to say things that my government, your government, doesn't want me to say. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to come out and I'm going to tell you the truth. And it doesn't it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter to them. It doesn't matter to me that I expose the truth of the matter. I'm so fed up with tippy toeing around this government when what they did, not only to Don Henry and Kavanaugh's family, but all of us here in Arkansas. And it's time that they get exposed for their truth. It's time they get exposed for what they have been doing to the American people all these decades. And we wouldn't have known of all this corruption if it wasn't for the boys being run over by a train in a sleepy little town in Arkansas. So with that, folks, I'm going to let you guys go. I'm going to start on it in the morning. I'll do a show tomorrow and tomorrow night. And I am going to uncover some things right before your eyeballs that you're just not going to believe. This is just going to blow you away. And at this point, for those of us that are left, it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter what they want to come and do and threaten. It's got to be told. We have to tell the American people what the government did. And they've covered it up all along. And when they handed in the stupid little notes at Papa Bush's funeral, I just knew. I knew it had to do with this. And I think I'm right. And a lot of people do here think that is what the notes were going around. Because about the time he died is when some documents were uncovered. And they were redacted. And now we could see what it says. And you know what? It points to all of them. I didn't realize how big. I didn't realize how the biggest scope of the people involved. But when we started getting documents that had been redacted and we started seeing the names, you almost sit back and go, wow, they're all in on it. They're all in on it. And it wasn't just to cover for Bill and Hillary Clinton and Family Malik. No, it was to cover all of them. It was to cover everything they had been doing. And they did it right here in Arkansas. And two sleepy little towns. One of Saline County and the other one is called Mena, Arkansas. So I want to thank you all, and please share. Let people know I'm doing this. And if you guys really want to know how corrupt this is and who's a part of it, it goes to the top. And what do I mean by the top? Well, I'm going to call them out. We not only remember I said I seen Comey and Mueller and them here in the 80s, that they're a part of it. Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Bill and Hillary Clinton, most of the Bush family. We have the cartel of El Chapo. We have oh boy, who else up there? Who else up in Washington? Maxine Waters, Leahy, Durbin. There's a lot of them, folks. Any of these Democrats have been going, Feinstein probably even knew about it. Kerry, Colonel North, Oliver North, him. The list goes on and on and on of the people in Washington that all knew about this. You say, well, what about the Republicans? You say, it was a Bush family. They helped cover this up just as bad as the Clintons had to cover this up. And no, it's not really about Iran-Contra. There's a lot more to this, folks. And I'm not, you know what? I named names and they didn't want their names coming out, but by golly, I just gave you a bunch of them. There's going to be more. By golly, Nancy Pelosi, you knew what you did. You knew what you did. Oh, and Schumer, oh yeah, you knew what you did. Y'all knew what you did to us. And it's going to come out, and I'm going to keep going until I tell you the whole story because I'm doing this for Linda Ives. And now that we have the proof and we have all the records, and they sent me all the evidence and all the documents, I can tell you guys about it. And boy, I'm going to tell you. So come on back tomorrow, and you guys are going to start hearing what our government has done for 40 years. I thank you all for watching. And this is going to be emotional for me, folks. This is going to be a real hard one for me. I've been a big part of this since 1996. And when I met Linda Ives, it just broke my heart that this happened to her son and that they drug her into a government cover up that she never should have been a part of. You know, if her son were to die, it should have been in better circumstances, not to find his foot um, on train tracks 2 days later, and not to have his head so sawed up that they couldn't even do a proper autopsy to find out what they actually did to his head. So, with that, folks, I will see you all tomorrow. Have a wonderful Thursday, and God bless. And tell your friends Ellie's exposing this. And you bring your friends, you tell your friends that they're going to hear a government cover up by those in Washington that they never, ever wanted uncovered. Um, so hit the like, hit the share. Um, oh boy, I'm having a hard time here. Uh, Subscribe over in Facebook. Hit the follow, hit the like, and you all come on back tomorrow because I've got a big story, and I'm not gonna quit until I'm done telling you. So we'll see you all tomorrow morning. God bless. And you know what? Keep your kids safe. Bye bye.